Going to start with Jessie's story. So, dude, what I did was I sent these guys some questions to provoke a bit of a conversation. What are some things that come between you and God?
So there's a few things that come between me and God in my life, but the one that stands out to me, and the one that I've noticed over the past 7 years as an adult, 8 years, is financial stability, financial independence.
So, financial stability, financial independence. What does that kind of look like for you? What are you aiming for with that?
So when I was growing up, my parents were very big on not being indebted to people. If you borrow some money, make sure you pay it back before you go buy any wants or anything that you would like. Um, that extended to borrowing things from people if whether that be needs. If my lawn's getting a bit overgrown, I don't have the money to buy a lawnmower at the moment. I don't like borrowing a lawnmower from people. So it extends to all these types of needs in my life that
Mm.
even though they're not wants, I don't like being indebted to somebody, whether that's borrowing, giving it back to them,
Mm.
or
And
making.
so how does that then play out for you? You don't want to be in debt. You don't want to be dependent on other people. So what do you do to try to make sure that that doesn't happen?
I work a lot more than like my goal is to have money, not
Mm.
for wealthy reasons, but that comes between my love for God, that I want to work harder, have more money, so that I can provide for myself, my family, without having to ask people for that.
Mm, mm. And excuse me, that's certainly, I think, in days gone by, we talk about that as a Protestant work ethic. That you are loyal and faithful and hardworking because you want to provide for yourself and for your family without any dependence upon anyone else. And that's something I know for me as well was really ingrained in me from a young age. Was work hard, don't go into debt, pay off your debts, have that independence. Um, how does that become something that comes between you and God? How do you find that to come between you and God?
One of the best examples of my life is when I was about 18, 19, working at Sumo Salad in Karrinyup. Uh, my shift would start during church, and I would leave church midway through the sermon and go to work to make sure I'd have enough money. So that's just a very obvious example. The work is more important than God at that
Mm,
point.
mm. So when you find that you have these thoughts and you're going down that path of I need to do this so that I'm depending on me and I'm not depending on God, as it were. How do you deal with those things, and how do you put in place things to stop you from going down that path?
The first thing would be that when I noticed this, I talked to my parents, now currently my wife. Um, I'd go to them, talk to them about my problems, the reasons why I do these things. But I would also turn to God. I'd read some verses that I have helped me in the past, that have grounded me and made me realize the reasons I'm doing it, and the reasons that I should be putting God first.
Mm-hmm. I know for myself, one of the things that I find is that even when I have things in place, that doesn't mean that I don't start to mentally start going down that path again. And I kind of like I said, we need to be pulling up those weeds on a continual basis. We need to be continually examining ourselves. Do you find that as well?
Constantly. Um, when I was working at Sumisella was when I was 18. I'm 27 now. It's still happening these days. It's still one of my biggest idols that frequently come between me and God. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, it's a constant weed that needs to be pulled, that needs to be rectified.
Right. One of the verses that you shared with me that you said is a help for you is from Matthew 6:19 and 20. And I'll just read it. It says, "Don't store up treasure on earth. Moths and rust will eat it away, and robbers will break in and steal it. No, store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Moths and rust don't eat it away there, and no robbers break in and steal it." How does this verse or these verses help you?
When I was younger, And I read, this was one of the Sunday school Bible verses we had to memorize. Treasure always meant wealthy things, things that I wanted. But as I got older, I realized that treasures, to me at least, are anything that I want, but not necessarily to enjoy life with. It can be a need. So when I turn to this verse, it makes me realize that a treasure is just something that I put before God. So to not store up these treasures, to not store up these um, interests of mine that I put before God, but instead turn to Him, store up faith in Him, store up love in Him.
So a dependence on Him rather than a dependence on what you can do.
Yeah, instead of financial dependence, godly dependence. I'm still depending on something, but instead of financial reasons, it's I'm depending on God.
How easy is it to do that?
It's quite difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What does this constant struggle tell you about yourself and about God?
What it reveals to me is I'm broken, I'm sinful, and the only way that I can get through this is with God. You can't do it on your own. You can't do it with the family members around you. Can't do it with your wife, your husband. Sorry for the people who are women. You can only do it through God. So what it reveals to me about myself is that I'm broken. But what it reveals to me about God is that He's always there for us. Like James was saying a few weeks ago in his sermon, He provides for us. He provides for me when I'm struggling and I'm really wanting to borrow my dad's lawnmower, but I know that God is providing me with the lawnmower. I don't have to make sure I go work and get money to buy my own one. People will supply me with the things that I need because God is using these people. So it doesn't just show me that God provides me directly. He provides me with friends and family around me that can help as well. And that doesn't mean that I'm depending on them. It means I'm depending on God.
Amen. That is just a really great perspective to take in on things. And for me, I think as a Christian, it's an incredible sign of maturity to realise that the way that God uses other people to help us doesn't mean that we're dependent on them or that we're dependent on ourselves, but it's God helping to provide the things that we need. I mean, that's what Christian community should be anyhow, is that we all are there helping each other out. That's Acts Church, right there. So one of the things I asked you to do was to give me a definition, your definition of what an idol is. So do you want to read out what your definition is?
Sure. So in my mind, an idol is an abstract noun. What an idol is, you can't see it, you can't feel its physical properties. It's within you. It's a feeling that can control you and control how you live your life. What the idol is, though, can be physical. It can be anything that you put before God. It can be a physical object, but it can also be a mental or an emotional attachment to something, connection to something. It can be anything at all, and that's why it's in us.
Right. And then you gave me a couple of verses there. Do you want to read those verses?
Read them. First one is Daniel 5:4. This relates to how it can be something physical. As they drank the wine, they praised the gods of gold and silver, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone. The second verse is 1 Corinthians 8:4. So then, about eating food sacrificed to idols, we know that an idol is nothing at all in this world, and that there's no God but one.
So these verses, they talk about how an idol can be made of different things and how it's not necessarily something tangible that you can touch, but it's anything that gets put in the place of God in our lives. Jessie, thanks for sharing with us that. Here's where you guys get an opportunity, a short opportunity, a minute and a half, to reflect on this conversation that Jessie and I have had. So first question is, what struck me most about this story? And then secondly, what is God saying to me through this story? So I'm going to press the timer. You've got a minute and a half just to spend a bit of time in reflection, and then we'll go on.